Hi, my name is Elizabeth Wagner. I'm a textile designer and a hand weaver. Welcome to my channel Illumination. Through these series of videos, I'd like to show the beginning weaver how to plan a weaving project and how to warp the loom and weave the piece and wet finish your piece. So we've already done a few videos with the beginning process of calculating how much yarn you'll need and measuring out your warp. And now I'd like to show you how to begin to put the warp onto your loom, how to dress the loom so we can get it all threaded and get started weaving. So what I did in the last video was measure the warp, and now I've got this warp that I've chained, kind of just done in a braid. It's called chaining the warp, and I've got it all ready to go on the loom. The first thing that's done when you warp the loom from front to back, which is the method that I'm going to show, is that you want to get all of the warp ends, or all of the pieces of yarn, through this piece right here, which is called the reed. And the best way to do it is to make sure that the reed stays upright so you can work with the warp yarn. You can either tie the, this is the beater, and that's what the reed sits in. In order to keep it upright while you're working, you can either come over to the end and tie the beater, like sort of string it up in a way that you can get it to stay upright like that. Or what I've done, and you may not want to do this, but it's totally up to you, with your beater, is I have drilled a hole in the beater into the crossbar on my loom, and by putting a little metal peg in each side, I can hold it up just like that. So that's what I'm going to do. You may have to tie yours up just to keep it upright. Either way, you want to come to the loom and put your warp in the center of your reed. So the way that you need to figure out what the center is, and where you can start threading the warp through the reed, is that you first of all have to know how wide your reed is. So I've got a reed that measures 50 inches, and my warp is 9 inches wide, which we've already calculated when we were figuring out how big we wanted the dimensions of our scarf. So if you subtract 9 from 50, that'll give you 41 inches left over. So you don't want to weave on one end and then have all this left over. You want to weave in the middle of your loom. So you're going to have 9 inches in the middle of the loom, which leaves 41 inches. Half on this side and half on this side. So about 20 inches is where you want to come in to start slaying your reed, or threading your reed. They call it slaying the reed. This is 20 inches. Right about there is where I'm going to start. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what you want to do is get close. So I'm just going to stick something in there just to show me where I wanted to start. Before that, you want to kind of tie this around the front beam so that it stays secure while you're threading everything through the reed. And you want some of it, when it goes through the reed, you want some of it to come out the other end and kind of hang down a little bit, because the next step after this is you're going to be putting it through the eyes of the heddles. So let some of it come down. I'd say probably about, 12 inches or so. And that's where you can just sort of wrap the whole chain right around the front beam of your loom. And what I do is I wrap it around, and then I stick the knotted end through one of the loops. And I just pull it all really tight. And if this hangs down a little farther, it's not going to be a big deal, because we're going to have to pull more of it that way anyway. So just try to get this chained warp securely around the front beam, just so it doesn't move around a lot. Now, in order to slay the reed, you're going to have to hold the cross of the warp that we measured. I showed you that before, that this X right here, whoops, see if I can show it. This X right here is the cross. You want to hold it in a way in your hand so that it doesn't get that it doesn't mingle back together again. You want to keep this cross separated. And the way that I do it is, I'm going to show you before I snip these little strings off here that's holding all the pieces separate. I put on my hand, I put my index finger through the top hole, and my middle finger is going to stay in the side of the cross, and then my ring finger and my pinky are going to stay in the bottom. That way I have something separating each piece, and then my thumb is usually off here to the side. So you can see that each piece is kept separate. Now, as long as you don't have distractions or phones to answer or anything, I'd say you can go ahead and snip hold it up straight so that you're kind of even, and then just cut the top, very top of the warp, the loop. Okay? These little pieces of yarn that we tied to keep the sections separated, you can just pull those off. There's one, and then those little loops are where we had it tied onto the warping reel. Those will be snipped off. You can snip that little loop that you had on the dowel. You can just snip it right at the bottom of the knot, because you got to thread all those through the reed. Now carefully snip this without snipping any of the warp. At the same time, you want to make sure you do not move your fingers out of that configuration that I showed you. Index finger on the top, middle finger on the side, ring finger on the bottom, and thumb on this side. So snip all of your little holders out. Okay, so we're going to have 12 ends per inch, and you have to know what type of a reed you have. Mine is 6 dent reed because there are 6 slots in each inch. If you look on the end of your reed, there's usually a pressed in number. You can't see mine, but there's a 6 down there. It'll tell you how many dents per inch. So you may have an 8 or a 10 or a 12 dent reed. If you can't tell by the end, you can measure how many holes there are in an inch. So come back for my part 2 video on how to slay the reed, and keep going. Thank you.